Got it.
Got it. All right, we're good to go.
It's
All
done.
right, so I want to first thank you for coming in and speaking with us, Deborah. The purpose for what I do with these interviews is to approach and give information to people in the beauty industry from a different perspective. You know, everybody wants to talk about, you know, the skill sets it takes to be successful, and that's true. But I like to get into some of the other things that kind of brought you to the business, and from there, kind of explore some other avenues. So let's first do what we always do, kind of introduce yourself. Let us know how long you've been in the game and what brought you to it.
Okay, so my name is Deborah Jones. I've been doing hair since 1985. I was actually tricked into doing hair. My father owned a company called Almost Glow International, and they owned multiple beauty supplies. And in that, they sold their product. So my mother was the neighborhood hairstylist without a license. She did curls in the garage for years. So during the 80s, it was real popular. Blacks were doing nails at that time. So, and I was spending a lot of money on getting my nails done. So my father said, why don't you go to school? If you go to school, I'll get you a salon. I said, oh, okay. So then, but he says, why don't you go to cosmetology school? I said, I have no interest in doing hair. All I want to do is nails. So I went to cosmetology school, and as he said, he got me a salon. I did hair for about 4 years, and I became, I couldn't inhale the formaldehyde. They had a lot of formaldehyde in the nail products during that time, and it was affecting my breathing. So my doctor told me I had to quit doing nails. So my father again said, well, you should have just went to school for hair. So if you go to school for hair now, I'll get you a salon. I said, cool. So I went to school for hair, and I actually liked it. So during the time I was in school, I have 2 other brothers. One was a certified welder, but he couldn't get a job because he didn't have the experience. He couldn't get the experience because he was new. So he told him the same thing. If you go to school for hair, I'll get you a salon. But he didn't tell me that he told him that. So now he's going to school. Now, I didn't know he was doing that because I was out of the home by that time. So he was going to school. Now, then I found out that I said, what are you doing? He said, well, Daddy told me he'll get me a salon. I'm like, that's what he told me. So then I had my baby brother who was an accountant, and he hated accounting, even though he got a degree in accounting. So my father said, well, hey, your brother and your sister is doing hair. Why don't you go and do hair? So during the time my second brother went to school, I went back to school to become a barber because I didn't feel like I knew enough cutting. So I went back to school to be a barber. So now he's bragging, your sister got 3 licenses, your brother's going to school, now you're going to school. I don't care what you do, you're going to do something. So he said he didn't want to do women's hair, he only wanted to do men. So during that time, I didn't want him to open the salon because I still didn't have knowledge of a salon. So I went and worked in different salons in Inglewood, and so did my second brother. So by the time the baby boy got out of school, my father said, we're not waiting for you to go work nowhere. We're going to open a salon. So Friday's Beauty Supply was my dad. Mr. Friday was my dad's good friend, along with your dad, Mr. Good Fred. We call him Good Fred. So they all came into cahoots, and they found a salon in Long Beach. So that's where we started, in Long Beach. And that was my money maker. I made so much money doing hair because I was a queen of curls. I could roll a curl in just quick. Gotcha. So yeah, so we ended up doing being there, and then it became too rough. People were getting, there was a lot of stuff going on down there. So then we ended up coming to LA, and we've been in this location in LA for 33 years, and we were in Long Beach for 4 years. We're the only Black business in the shopping center. 34 years. We're the longest standing business in the shopping center. Well, yeah, actually, we're the longest standing because everything else has changed ownerships and changed names. So we're the only Black and the longest standing in that shopping center.
So the interesting part for me is for you, because there are so many young folks that come into this business and they're told that hair isn't a profession. It's not a, it's like a more of a hobby than it is a real job.
Mm.
Your parents, I mean, because, I get a lot of people that think, okay, you've got a skill at that, you've been doing it, but you need to get a job too to back that up. At the end of the day, they always try to go back and forth. Your parents, because they were in the beauty field, so your mom was doing hair. Did your mom kind of come up with the product based on what she was doing, and then kind of talk to, work with your dad, and next thing you know, they got a product and they out there?
That's exactly how it happened. By her being in the beauty supply, people would come in and they would say, oh, I need some placenta. That makes my hair grow. Oh, I use vitamin E. That makes my hair grow. Oh, I use, all these different things people would say that they use. So she got 29 different ingredients.
Mhm.
And then my mother's very religious. And she said the Lord told her to put what, vitamins and minerals, no
Right.
water, no alcohol. I don't know of any product on the market that can say no water and no alcohol.
Wow.
So she has 29 different vitamins and minerals, and she put it all in one jar.
Mhm.
And then she started letting the customers sample it
Okay.
to see if it worked, right?
Uh-huh.
So over the years and months and stuff, people were, oh my God, my hair is growing. Oh my God. So she started getting all these testimonials, and then she took it to Long Beach Memorial Hospital, to the cancer ward, to
Gotcha.
give to the patients that were coming out of chemo.
Uh-huh.
And she got all these testimonials of how this product made their hair grow. Then she found a chemist, which was actually the chemist for Nexus products.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it was just it was like a divine order.
Right.
So everything that she touched, it just flowed.
Started falling into place.
You just start falling into place. She found one of the best chemists in the world. The Nexus chemist, he was doing Redken, he was doing
Right.
Joyco, he was doing everybody. So
Out in the valley?
Yes.
Yeah.
Her little company was like minute, but he said he wanted to do it for her because my mother had such a bubbly personality.
Gotcha.
So that's how she came. That's why it's called Glow 29, because of the 29 vitamins and minerals in the product. So that's how we working in the beauty supply over the years, and so that's how we got into it. My daddy was like, you guys should get a license.
Right. And then get out there and do it.
Right.
So were you just in the supply or in the salon, or did you ever work with your dad on the supply side? Because I know a lot of students want to do products now. Private label's the way to go.
Yes.
You're talking about it since the 80s. I mean,
Yes.
like I said, you go to a lab, they can create everything for you and box it up and send it to you.
Exactly.
So what was your process of kind of working through that?
So my process first, I worked in the beauty supply.
Okay.
That was my process first, because they opened the beauty supply, maybe like in the 70s or something like that.
Okay.
So I worked in the beauty supply for years, even though I had a job working for a bank. I was a vault teller.
Mm-hmm.
But they never would give me a raise, but they would make me do everybody's job. So I'd come home complaining, I'm doing all this work and they're not paying me, but I'm doing the loan officer's work, and I was doing everybody's work, but they weren't paying me. He's like, you need to get out of there. Go do, that's when he told me to do hair. So, and I was wearing the diamonds and the gold chains, and I had everything, I was really into it. So he was like, well, that's how I got into the hair, and he set me up a salon in the beauty supply. So when I wasn't doing customers, I had to work in the beauty supply. So that's how I did that. But then we transitioned, and when we went to the shop in Long Beach, it was very difficult because I was working with my two brothers, and we had never worked together. So that took about a year of getting the knacks out, you know what I mean? Until I realized I was the boss. But now it's just like smooth sailing. We've been doing this now, like I said, in that location, 33 years. And It's like a family. We have operators we have one operator that's been with us 25 years.
Wow. Okay.
And the other guy, he's been there about 21. Wow. So it's like a family, you know what I'm saying? So it can work. Families it can work.
So now let me go to a throwback one. Because I know for you it was young, but even though you were young, when was okay, I'm gonna get my license? Why did you go to work at a bank? I mean, what was the, okay, I'm got to get me a real job. I'm not going to be, working at the beauty supply with my dad and the whole 10 yards. What was the time frame or the mindset that flipped you from saying what my dad been trying to get me to do, I should do? Because I know he was trying to get you to work at the beauty supply from the get-go before you went to work at that bank.
Right.
But you still went to work at that bank. So what was the change for you that made you kind of fall into the family business? And how long did that take?
Okay, so I moved out of my parents' house about 17, and I started working at the bank. Okay. So as working at the bank, I was doing, like I said, all these, everybody's job, but.
So you didn't have none of the licenses yet, right?
I didn't have no licenses. Okay, I didn't have anything.
Right. Even though he tried to get you, you was like, I ain't doing that. I'm going to work at the bank.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I worked at the bank. I did the bank for about almost 4 years. And it was every day I was coming home, calling my dad, complaining about what they're doing to me. And he was like, I keep telling you, you need to go to school. I keep telling you. I won't say what he said because we'll be a tape, but he was saying you need to go to get your own stuff. Get your
damn license. I know what he was saying. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So he just kept egging me on, and then I think the thing that prompted me, because I was a daddy's girl. I have all brothers. I'm the only girl, and I'm the oldest. I was the closest to my father, and I always wanted to make him happy. Not so much for me. I didn't really want to do hair, but I knew that was his dream for me. He kept saying, I had an aunt that was going to school for hair, and that was his younger sister. He says, Queen is going to school for hair. Can you believe that? You're going to let her outdo you? I know you better than that. You're going to let her outdo you? And I'm like, no. He says, well, go on to school. Show her what to do, because she don't know what to do. Don't let her outdo you. So I got in school. As soon as 2 weeks after I enrolled, she drops out of school. So I said, you're comparing me to somebody who done dropped out. So he was always trying to make us do the best that we could, even though I couldn't see it. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me as far as going to school and getting my license.
I mean, I know he owned a product and all of that, but and then I'm sure you probably have had this conversation with him at some point. What was what he saw about people out there in the industry making money and good money that he finally told you, or you finally listened to? Because I know he was running the streets, and he's, if he was like me, he was in and out of shops all day long, selling the product. So he knew the kind of money they were making. Right. And was trying to express that to you, but you didn't get it, at that point in time. I mean, and that's one of the questions, I guess, from your perspective, from a business side, how did he bring the business side of it, not just doing hair, but the kind of money you can make? How did he kind of bring that to you in a way that you can understand it?
But when they had their Glow product, I did all the shows all over Atlanta, all the shows. We did the winter and the summer, Bonner Brothers. And I started watching how much product they sold. And they were literally international. They were selling in Japan and London and Germany. They were literally international. Right. And I started watching them, how they conducted business. My parents, my mother graduated from college, but my father never graduated from high school. So he was just using his street knowledge, for business, and they were learning as they went. So they did a lot of mistakes, but I'm just watching what they did. And he would go in and out of beauty supplies, and he would tell me, Deb, they doing this, and Deb, they doing that. And then I would see the actual work when I would go to the hair shows. Then I became really, really interested in the actual industry of hair, because it was exciting to me. When I would do clients' hair, when you turn them around in the seat and they said, oh, that was my satisfaction. Yeah, that's what I live for. When they turn around, they say, oh my goodness. Oh, so just doing that and being in and out of the beauty supply and watching the Glow itself and how it grew and how they operated business. And my father was if you listen to him, he'd make you rich. because he had a lot of insight.
Yeah.
So he made us as kids, not only with the beauty supply, with real estate. My father, he was the reason why I became a broker, a real estate agent, because he was buying so much property from the agent. I was like, gosh, your agent making a lot of money off of you. He said, well, you can make it. I said, how can I make it? Go to school. I was like, what? So I did that. I went to school, and then for a few years, they were treating me so bad at the
bank.
Not the bank, the agency where I was working for real estate.
Oh,
he said, well, why don't you, you don't need them. You can be your own boss. Why don't you be a broker? I said, Daddy, I don't know enough. He said, you know just as much as that dude.
Right.
So that's that's the kind of guy he is. He would just push you and push you and push you till you can get to your highest. So he would make sure he set us up in the salon. He says, I'm going to set you up, open the doors, and give you the key, and I'm done. If you can't pay the rent, you need this fixed, that's on y'all.
Right.
So we had to learn like that, you know what I mean? Because he set us up. Salon was beautiful and everything, but that's all he did.
And he was buying the properties and the whole 10 years, and to that point, we're talking 70s, 80s, and it hasn't changed. He was funding all that with the money he was making
from the glow,
from the products,
from the product.
At the end of the day.
Yes,
and
exactly
then you
right.
got to, so from your perspective, you were doing the glow, you were doing the salon, you had the broker's license. When did you start to understand you knew real estate? When did you start to put that money to work in the same way your dad did? And how did you go about that? Was it the banks? Where did you save? Was it just in the drawer at home? What did you do?
In the 90s doing hair, I made a lot of money. It was a lot of money to be made. It was like hand over fist money. It was like people just giving you stuff. So I started saving my money because my father was insisted that everybody had to buy a house.
Okay.
So I was like, I ain't gonna get out of this. I didn't think I was ready, but he's like, you're gonna buy a house. So he just made us, he was the force that made us save. So back in the 90s, I was like, okay, I had enough, and I didn't even find my first house. He found my first house, made the deal and everything. He says, oh, I found your house. You got to put this down. What?
What was your strategy for saving when you knew you had to save? What was it? Was it one client? Was it a certain amount of money every week? What was your strategy?
I would take a certain amount of money every week, and I put it in a separate savings account.
Okay.
I wouldn't touch it. I didn't move it. I didn't do anything separate. And then when I would get my income tax at the end of the beginning of the year, whatever, I would put that away.
Right.
I take just enough for me to go shopping so I could feel good about myself. But then I put the rest, and it took me maybe about a year and a half to get enough for a down payment, which I thought was a lot of money at that time, but it's nickels and dimes now. But it was our first house was $125,000.
Right.
And I thought that was just, who could buy a house for $125,000? But that's what I did. So, and then once I bought my first house, he was always, like I said, in the real estate business. So he was renting, and I was watching him, how he maneuvered the tenants and how he talked to the tenants and how he would go collect the money and do all that stuff. So I said, I need to get a bigger house. So then I started saving again because I wanted a bigger house. Now the mortgage is a lot more expensive now.
Yeah, almost 200,000. Huh?
Yes. So I just started saving again, started doing the same thing, started cutting back, and just, I have always been a real good saver. Always.
Okay.
I've always been a good manager of money. So it wasn't difficult for me. But at the time I was married to somebody who wasn't a manager of money. So it was a conflict all the time. I had to hide money because I knew my goal that I wanted it. But if he knew I had the money, it was going to get spent. Because he would always say, well, we'll make it up later. No. So I would always have to hide it. So when I did, I rented out my house, and then I wanted to go move into an apartment because the house that I was purchasing was in probate.
Okay.
So it was supposed to be a 30-day probate. So I told my dad, I said, I'm going to go move in an apartment and until my house gets out of escrow, and then I'll move in, because the tenant wanted to move in then. So I didn't have anywhere to go. But Dad's like, no, you can come live with me. I'm like, Daddy, it's not just me no more. I'm married. and got a child. So he's like, y'all know it's okay. She said, tell you what, whatever you were paying on your mortgage over there, you pay that to me. I said, okay, because I would have to pay rent anyway. I said, okay, I'll just pay. So we stayed there. He said, but this is my only stipulation. You can only stay here 1 year. After a year, you have to leave. Now, my father was the type of person, if you went to stay with him, he would say nothing. You could live with him for 10 years, he would say a word. But his kids, who was really hard on us, we got any money from him, he had a plan on how we was gonna pay it back. But if you went to him, he would never ask you for the money. I was like, how do you do that? You don't even know these people, but you make us pay, but it was building me. And I didn't realize it at the time. So my escrow went out to 11 months because the brothers were fighting.
Gotcha.
So they were fighting, and it was supposed to be a 30-day escrow. It was 11 months. So on the 11th month, he said, next month you got to move out. And I was like, Jesus, these people, I don't know. So it actually closed the end of the 11th month, right at, So when I got ready to move out, he gave me all of my money back that I had given him for that entire year.
Wow.
Everything that I gave him for rent, he saved it and gave it back to me. And that's how I was able to furnish my house and fix it up. And so, I just play it forward. I do the same thing with my daughter. I make her pay rent. And when she moved out to go to college, I gave it all back to her. So when she went to the dorm, she'd be able to fix up her dorms and have money for gas. And so being in a family of business-minded people, now, a lot of people don't have that opportunity, but if somebody can tell you what to do and how to do it, it makes it so much easier. But they have to have a determination to save. And it's really hard nowadays to save because everything is so expensive. But you have to. Even if just the little things you were saying, like putting the tips away.
Right.
You have to. You just have to. It's a sacrifice.
Yeah, no, for sure. How many? I know you've had a lot of stylists probably in and out of your salons. Young girls coming in that you're trying to mentor, the whole 10 yards. How difficult has it been, or how easy has it been to mentor these young girls in their framework, in their mindsets?
It's been a little rough. We had one girl in particular, I'm going to tell you her story. She was
is that because they don't have a dad like you, or just the world is different?
The world is a lot different than it was when I was in school, but I had a determination. You know what I'm saying? I was a little different because I was a church girl. So I didn't run the streets. I wasn't a clubber, I wasn't a partier. I didn't do drugs. I didn't drink. So I was what they call square.
Right.
But I had a focus on what I wanted to do in life. And I know I didn't want to be on the county. I didn't want to be on the county. I didn't want nobody taking care of me. I wanted to be independent on my own. So I had to do a little more. But the young ladies that have come into my salon, most of them have been pretty good. But I have one in particular that really stuck to me. She was a dropout of school, and they have a continuation school in our parking lot. Gotcha. And on her breaks, she would come down to the salon and we talked to her and everything. And then she'd be in our salon longer than I thought. I said, aren't you supposed to be in school? She was like, I'm not going today. I said, well, you going out of here then? She's like, what? I said, if you're not going to school, you're not going to hang out in the salon. You go to school. When you get out of school, you can come back to the salon. And she was excellent braider. Excellent. So she would come and she would go to school, and then she would ask me about boys and everything. And she ended up getting pregnant. And I was telling her mother couldn't even talk to her. I could talk to her. Her mother would come to me. Can you just ask her this or tell her this? But she had her and her mother didn't have a relationship. I had more relationship with her. So we would tell her, because me and my brothers, we would all just sit around and while she's in the shop, we talk to her about this and she felt really, really comfortable. And I'm saying, you know what? You're doing hair at home. Why don't you go to school? Oh, I don't know. I said, you need to go to school. I said, no, because you have a lot of talent. Now you have a baby. You have to get a career for yourself, and you're in the home, and you can't charge at home, but you can charge in the salon.
Right.
She said, but I got to pay booth rent. I said, well, that's the cost of doing business. But if you build up your clientele, one customer can pay for your booth rent, but you'll have a legitimate job and you'll have a license by the state of California that you can show. So she ended up doing that, and she got her license. And I mean, I was just, when she graduated, I was just crying like it was my child because I was so happy to see where she had came from. She
Right.
graduated from high school. You know, she had to go to continuation school, but she ended up graduating, which she never would have went, you know what I'm saying? So that was one of my success stories. And you see her online, you see her work is awesome.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh my God, you see her work is, oh, that girl can braid. She's really good.
And see what's going on. So when you put your team together, you talk about taxes, a CPA, insurance and stuff like that. Was it your team or your dad's team?
My dad's team.
And you stayed with that team, or have you built your own team?
Well, I eliminated some of them, but some of them I've kept.
So but you've always had that team around you.
Yes.
So
pretty much so.
You've been doing taxes and taking care of that stuff from the time you started.
From the time I started.
Okay.
I've always did taxes. I've always did taxes, but you know, my tax man, I've changed tax people a few times because they were not good. And you know, the insurance and stuff, I've always had that. I've always had that, because one thing about me, the IRS, they don't usually come after you if you pay something. It's only when you don't pay nothing.
No, for sure.
So I like to stay under their radar. So I've always done the tax thing from the beginning.
Yeah, just like I used to say, give me a number that's, you know, I don't want to pay a whole bunch.
That part.
But no more than $1,000.
Right.
Put the income at that number. We
work my numbers, and that's what I've always done. So
if you can save the money and put it and use the money to do what you need to do, as long as you got something.
Yeah, but the only problem I had was by me doing hair, I didn't have a retirement. I didn't have a IRA or anything, because I was making hand over fist money, but I wasn't putting it, you know, away for the rest of my life. So it wasn't.
When did you start to think about that?
Probably my 20th year into doing hair. I was like, you know, I'm gonna be broke. I ain't got nothing, you know, because I had I was just doing hair. I didn't have a second job. So I was like, oh my God, I don't want to do this. I'm gonna be living on, you know, the IRS, when you don't put anything in, they have a certain amount they give you. It's like $400 something.
Yeah, for Social Security, yes.
Yeah, I ain't no way I'll be able to live. I need to do something. So I went to the bank and I opened up an IRA, and I started putting in an IRA. They don't actually, you have to actually put it in.
Right.
So then I started taking my income tax at the, when I get my income tax, and putting that in my IRA, because you could put in once a year, or you can put in up to a certain amount a year.
Right. Yeah. That's the one. The good and the bad is that there's a cap. And if you're trying to create an income for yourself at a certain number, you look at that number and you'll be like, okay, even if I put this in,
it ain't gonna be good.
It ain't gonna be enough.
Right.
And that's why we talk about other types of programs to get it done, you know, and to make that happen.
Right.
And I guess because your dad was in the beauty industry, your mom was in the beauty industry, that kind of retirement 401k never filtered down because they didn't know it either.
Right.
Your dad knew how to save.
But my dad, he had a job prior to Glow. My mother was a surgical technician, so they had jobs. My dad worked for Oscar Mayer for 30 years until they closed down in California and they moved out of state. My dad was a beef boner. So they had jobs. So he had his retirement. She had her retirement. This was something they did in addition to Glow. So they both of them had retirements.
So wait, your dad and your mom worked and while they were doing the product? Wow.
Yep. And then they hired, you know, staff, because they ended up, they were doing so much business, they ended up buying a brick and mortar. And they had a right down the, you know, I know you know, what's his name? Talk of the Town.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Their businesses were next door to each other.
Oh really? Oh okay.
They were talking. Oh yeah, their businesses were next door to each other.
That's funny.
So she ended up buying that building to manufacture the Glow product. She wasn't manufacturing it, but she shipped it out of there. The manufacturer was the chemist, but that's where they shipped it out of.
Right, they took it from there and put it in his spot and shipped
Yes,
everything.
right.
Kind of
Ship it,
controlled the shipping out of his spot.
box it up and ship it out.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's where both of them had a job. So, you know, I had got cancer in 2011 and I couldn't do hair.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't do hair and I was losing a lot of clients because I couldn't go to work.
Right.
So then during that time, I also was getting a divorce. So I said, I have to go to work. I have to go back to work. So I was doing hair part-time and I went and worked on a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked there 7 years until I retired last year. So now I have that income. I have the Glow income from Glow now. So I'm building a business back up. I have my real estate income, and I have my real estate income, and I have my shop when I do my shop. So I have all these multiple streams of income, which makes me secure in my retirement.
No, for sure. Mm-hmm. And from the real estate standpoint, did you try to encourage other folks in the industry to get into real estate, and how did that go for you?
Yeah, definitely. I was adamant about people purchasing homes because of what my father showed me. And people thought that they couldn't purchase homes. And I would talk, I can't even name how many people that I talked into buying homes that are now homeowners that thought they couldn't purchase.
Right. Yeah.
And I just started telling them, they started saving.
Yeah.
Where they were spending money on going out to dinner. And I said, look, you need to sacrifice, put X amount of dollars in, and we would do it like a plan. And and then I would work with them because I was a real estate agent. I would work with them and I would get them to the lender and I would tell the lender, okay, give them how much they need, what for this amount of money. And that's what they would do. And then they would actually work the plan until they had enough money for a down payment and they would purchase a home. And I was the real estate agent to purchase the home from. Yeah, I was their real estate agent from working with them maybe a year and a half.
Gotcha.
So,
most of them were FHAs at the time?
They were FHAs, and then they even have those loans where there's no money down, where everybody's getting in trouble.
Right. Yeah.
What they call it, you can say how much you made.
Yeah, but you needed 680 or better for that one, right?
Say it one more time.
You needed a 680. That was a stated. You could state your income.
Right.
And it was income and something else. You just had to tell them, but you needed a 680 credit score or better to get it done.
Well,
so did you have a lot of people?
At that time, I had excellent credit because that's how I was able to purchase my home, because I didn't have any documentation. What I was making, putting on my taxes wasn't enough to purchase a home.
Right, so you had to go state it.
I had to go state it. So I was so happy when they did that program, because now I could buy a house because my credit was always good, but I couldn't prove my income. I couldn't prove, what I was making. So that was a good plan, but they, once the 2008 crash, that was done.
Yeah. Those programs disappeared.
Those
programs disappeared.
Right.
Well, you say your credit was good. Was that a part of your dad kind of making you understand not spending money frivolously? How did you handle your credit as a young girl?
You know what? My dad we never talked about credit, because I don't think his credit was that good, but he had the money. You know what I'm saying? He had the money to back him up. But I always was a stickler on my credit, because it represented who I was. And I felt, to me, if I had a high credit score, they look at me different, because I can get this door open because I have this high credit score. So I was always one who made sure my credit was really, really good. When I got cancer, I was unable to pay my bills the way I was still paying them, but I was paying them really, really slow because I didn't have the income.
Minimum,
I was using credit cards to pay my bills.
Right.
So instead of like my mortgage, I used my credit card to pay my mortgage and then pay the minimum amount on my credit card. So my credit score went crazy. Right. I couldn't get a consolidation. They were told me I had too many bills to consolidate. Does that make sense?
The whole point.
Yeah, that's what I said. What's the whole point? So when I got a big lump sum of money from an insurance company, and right after I started working, it was actually 2018. my credit was shot up until 2018. And I got this big lump sum of money, and everybody that I owed, everybody paid them off.
Gotcha.
So now the credit card companies that I was dealing with that would not help me, now they want to up my thing. So you know what I did? I canceled them.
Right.
They were like, well, no, you don't have to cancel. No, I'm canceling you. My mother said, if they can't help you when you need it, when they're gonna help you? So I ended up canceling all those credit card companies, and now my credit score is back up there.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. What would you, and I guess, you fell in love with nails, couldn't do that for the health. You went to the hair game and went through all that. What would you do differently, if anything? Listen to dad sooner? I mean, or was everything in its right time frame?
I think everything was in its right time frame, because I got a lot of experience working in the corporate world too, except, because doing hair, you're kind of more lackadaisical, where in the corporate world, you have these guidelines, you have to do this, by this time, you have to go to lunch at this time, you come back, you go on vacation this time. So I had to learn that part of it, even though now I'm my own boss, but I had to learn that part of it to keep me, I guess, humble.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? So I know what to look for, what not to look for in this business because of me working in the corporate world.
Right.
Yeah.
And how do you, if you were to explain that to most young girls, that would you suggest they even maybe, because like I said, I teach, I've got a lot of young ones right out of high school, come to beauty school, and working for themselves early, they don't get that structure.
Right.
So how would you suggest, knowing what you know, what would you tell them about the structure that needs to happen from a salon standpoint, i.e., if you work at a shop and your hours are, your website says 10 to 6, then you need to be there from 10 to 6. Don't just get there when your first appointment shows up.
Right.
But they don't get that mentality yet, because if I ain't got no appointment, what I got to get down there for?
Right.
And you explain, I guess, kind of talk to them about what that means from a client services standpoint, the whole 10 yards.
Well, for a new operator, I say the best thing they should do is do commission, because commission is going to give you structure.
Right.
It's going to give you structure. You have a certain time you're supposed to be there. They're going to tell you when you're going to take your breaks. Right. They're going to tell you, how long you're going to work, which client you're going to work for. So that gives you structure in order to have, I guess, a balance on being, I guess it would be the difference between booth rent and commission, because commissions, you're going to have structure.
Yes.
Booth rent, you can do what you want when you want.
Right.
But when you do what you want when you want, you're not going to have nothing if you don't have no structure.
No, you're correct.
So I think the first thing they should do is actually booth rent. And booth rent in a salon that has, you've seen the salons like these, what do you call it? Fantastic Sam's.
Right.
Those type of industry, not particularly that particular name, but
that JC Penney's, all those.
Yes, somebody that has a real, where you got to clock in, just like you clock in on a regular job, and you have a vacation time, you have a, certain time you do this, and that will give you discipline.
Yes.
That will give you discipline. If you have a customer at 10 o'clock, you can't come at 5 minutes to 10, because you got to be set up and ready for the client when they walk in.
Yeah. And
they
I
don't
think
want you to look at it right.
And the payment structure of those places motivates you to understand, if you start in commission and you understand booth rent, that payment structure will make you see that, dang, if I was getting all of this money as opposed to just the commissionable, then I could be that much better. But again, you have to sit down and talk to somebody, because what you didn't see was the cost of product and those kind of things that were behind the scenes, which is kind of what the class that I have talks about, because you have to have the structure in place and know what these numbers are. It's like, okay, you didn't pay no attention to the cost of product when you were working at JCPenney's.
Right.
But you may want to ask them questions. And how much is a tube of color in the shampoo? And start to do the math and realize, okay, if I do it right, I can still make money as opposed to just jumping out.
Right. So that
do.
part is very, very interesting, because when you're working commission, you just go back to the shampoo bowl and pick up a bottle of shampoo and shampoo it.
Right.
The towels are there.
Right.
You know, everything, your hairspray is there, your bobby pins are there.
Yes.
Whereas commission, you don't think about those little things as far as booth rental, because booth rental,
right.
Everything you have,
you got to pay for.
You're gonna have to purchase it.
Yep.
Nothing is free. Everything
right.
you use, from your Sanex strips to go around the neck, everything.
Yep.
Plastic caps.
Yep.
So all that is a factor in doing. So you have to have, first of all, clientele right. to be able to maintain that clientele, not just one time only, that somebody's going to be a repeat customer. So in order to do that, first of all, you can't be coming at 5 minutes too. You have to be professional.
Yeah.
You have to look professional. You have to act professional. You have to be where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be. You can't come to work high. You can't come to work drunk. Can't come to work talking loud with no clothes on. Because people, they don't like that. There's some ghetto salons, but they're not making the kind of money that these upscale salons are. You know what I'm saying? So
very true. And she said no clothes on. I guess that's the whole women thing. They just
they
dress completely differently.
Ooh.
Completely differently.
It's not a professional look.
Right.
I think when you're in a salon, everybody should have light clothes. You know what I mean? Like everybody's dressed alike or look uniform, or have a jacket on, a smock on that represents whatever the name of the business you're in. You know what I'm saying? So it looks like a business.
Right.
If your hours say 10 to 6, don't close at 4:30. Said, I ain't got no customers, I'm going home. No, you stay, you got to stay there. That's the rule in my salon. If you're there and everybody else is gone home, if you're still there, you're the last operator. I don't care if you've not finished. If you finish, you got to stay to the clock until the sign is over. 6 o'clock, we close at 6.
Right.
You can't close early.
Yeah.
And they know that. So that's something I've done from day one. So we operate like other people.
So yours is more a combination of booth rent and commission? No,
it's all booth rent.
Okay, gotcha.
All booth rent. I've never had commission salon because I don't have the time to watch people, and I want to come when I want and I want to leave when I want.
At this point in time for you, I get you.
Yeah, no, I've never had commission. I've always had booth rent salon.
Okay. So last question for you. What do you think was your biggest regret or missed opportunity?
My biggest regret in doing hair is not attending as many classes that I could. I thought I could do it myself, and I didn't get the proper training on a lot of things in hair that I wish I had done now because of the money aspect. But you have to spend money to make money.
Gotcha. So
that was one thing that I really regretted. And another thing I regretted was not starting sooner, even though the corporate world helped me, but I could have been doing this, a long time ago. If I had just not did the nails and just did the hair, I could have did it all without having to do a separate school.
Right.
Because I went to nails first, and then I had to go back and do the nails again when I did cosmetology. So I could have did it all in one. And that's another thing that I really regret.
So do you think, one question leads to another. Do you think if you hadn't have had the breathing issue, that you would have ever been in the hair game?
Probably not. Because I had no desire to do hair.
Okay.
None. Until my father kept saying about his sister, you gonna let her outdo you? I can't believe you gonna let her outdo you. And I'm like, ugh, now I gotta go show her, because my daddy want me to do this. But I probably never would have did hair because it didn't appeal to me.
Gotcha. Okay.
It didn't appeal to me. I love doing the shows and stuff. But I didn't really enjoy the shows until I got my license, because then I really got interested in the things that they were doing in the booths. But
you did platform work and competitions and stuff like that?
Yes.
Okay.
I did it all. We were all over. Everywhere there was a show, that's where we were.
You were, did you do Hair Wars with my man down here in LA when
I didn't do Hair Wars. I would go to them. I didn't do no Hair Wars though.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because Hump the Grinder came to LA and we did a
Yeah.
couple of shows down here one
Yeah.
time. So you went to Detroit and did them. You went to Detroit and saw 'em.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't never do Hair Wars, but I would go to the shows for sure.
Atlanta, Chicago,
Atlanta.
all that
Mostly
stuff.
Atlanta. I stayed in Atlanta. The shows in
Warner
Atlanta.
Brothers? Oh, yeah.
The Bonner Brothers. Ooh, yes, Lord.
Yeah.
Those some good
That
old
was one
days.
for everybody. That was one for everybody. Well, you know, I just want to thank you for taking the opportunity. Like I said, I love sharing this. You know, I will have my students watch these and write reviews so that they can get ideas about where they want to go and what they want to do, and just hear other stories. So I really want to thank you for taking the time out to make this happen for us.
You are absolutely
and thank
welcome.
you, Ms. Alfreda, for setting it up.
Thank you. One thing I want to say before we leave, my father used to always have this quote. He would say, do what you have to do now so you can do what you want to do later. And that's what I would tell the students, that do what you have to do, all the sacrifices you need, do them now. And you can live your life the way you want to later.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, thank you again. I appreciate you.
All right.
All righty.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Alfreda.
All right, we'll be talking.